into it, and how do we early diagnose or how do we prevent the disease happening? That is something. There is no point in building a great cities with AQI of 600. I'm telling you about Delhi, New Delhi. You are killing the people by not stopping the pollution.
YouTube.
You're actually
That is some
perpetuating the
channel. We
disease.
just forgot our tripod.
So that's
coming
something we need to spend money there.
What is that?
How do we prevent the disease? Rather than I do
Just
lung
a second.
transplant, after lung is gone, I do lung transplant. That's not the solution. So I think the whole healthcare has to shift to the other side. That's something which I strongly believe in it. I've gone through
You're from India.
35, 40 years in healthcare. Seen the
93
best
plus
of the
9,
world.
93 to
Healthcare,
19.
both UK,
Two.
US, and
Max
India.
293
Being a leader in healthcare, traveling
1938.
across the countries. I believe
663.
China is being
What's happening
significantly
please?
better than most of the countries,
NAV.
including the United States. So
WEYA.
I have to hats off to them.
WEYA.
They make money, they're investing into the research,
I'm the MC.
innovation, and
Yeah, I see.
healthcare. I know
What he
there
captures.
may be pollution and all, still a problem there. Because
Quick,
there is
quick,
huge
quick. This
manufacturing
speech is
nation.
going to end over
They're
the
coming
phone. I
around.
have to go
They're
ahead.
actually improving much
Just
better
wait.
than
I just need to get India on there.
So that's the
You're from
shift.
here or you're from
Early
India?
detection
Yeah, so it should be
and
easy to.
preventive healthcare is a big shift
I
happening.
just have to select the
AI
country.
should play a very important role
No,
in
I
that.
have to go ahead, please, fast.
Then the second shift happening is from
Please,
hospital center to distributed healthcare. This is where IT or both machine learning, AI can help, bringing remote care, point of care, and rural health can improve, preventive care can happen at the house, home care. All these things should happen. This is where technology can explode and is going to explode. Whether if we don't do it, somebody else will do it. Let me be honest. This is where I want all the innovators here should think of how do we do, you don't need to do everything, small bit. How do we do a screening of, let's say, screening of cervical cancer in India is very high. That's because of menstrual hygiene and various things. Somebody solves that menstrual hygiene and they think cervical cancer will come down. Then there is vaccine now. If we can educate them to vaccinate, we can cure the cancer. That's a big burden we're relieving. Same thing, tobacco, habits, many things can be done. You don't need to go individually. You can train somebody there with AI and application and with the mobile, you can do a lot of things. So all that, there are several point of care tests. We are also incubating a couple of companies, point of care tests. They can do sputum and diagnose tuberculosis with a mobile phone. So if it is positive, it is positive. If it is negative, it doesn't mean positive. You can do a few times, then the prediction will become much higher. Same thing, urine testing, blood tests, all this can be done. It's called blood AI, sputum AI, and urine AI, and blood fluids AI. All these are possible at village level. One health worker can do all these things, screening of the whole village, and the data can be transmitted, and even the reports can be transmitted, and some experts can do this. This is the kind of evolutions happening in healthcare and AI. So this going to the distributed care, in my view, preventive, all these things happen in next 10 years. We don't need to build huge hospitals for 3,000 beds, 2,000 beds, each bed costing in India 1.5 crores, 2 crores rupees. Not necessary. Do the preventive care, your hospital beds will come down. You can do daycare, many of them can be done daycare. They can go home and have treatment. Again, post care, you can do by remote care, by wearables, all of that. So you don't need to keep them in the hospital. So that's another area, wearables, big opportunity. So that gives huge data, and now we have computing power and data analytics. Use the data for helping the people. Okay, that's another big shift is happening. That's where opportunities are. The third shift is from documentation burden to automated workflows for hospitals, clinics, doctors. In a hospital, we typically spend, at least in India, we spend a little less because of litigation is less. In the countries where there is a litigation, in the country where there is litigation, 2 minutes. Where there is a litigation, we spend a lot of time on addressing the litigation. So, too much paperwork. You relieve us, use technology, relieve us from that. We can wonderfully do our patient care and patient outcomes a little bit better. Then, next shift is biology, everything coming together. Genomics, proteomics, and drug discovery, vaccine discovery all happen. We've seen it in the pandemic. Vaccines have become lifesavers. I know there is some criticizing, but all said and done, there is no pandemic treated better than this pandemic, never before. So again, technology will help us, the mRNA platforms, all those things help us. So, gut biome, bringing all these technologies and drug discovery becomes faster and cheaper, and that's what I saw yesterday, and you will see here in healthcare. This huge amount of drug discovery will happen at a fraction of the cost of what is happening today and much faster. So we'll be able to solve many diseases. And we are creating I just don't know time, we are creating a healthcare ecosystem system in India and Hyderabad. We are bringing healthcare, life sciences, technology together. There's no undergraduation, post-graduation. It will be PhDs, postdoctorals, master's courses, and cross-functional courses to build the capacity and to innovate all the medical problems and find solutions accessible, affordable, and scalable. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary, for the insightful talk about India's medical healthcare. Now we shall finally explore the intersection of art, technology, and human experience. May I please welcome Mr. Sergio Ardalan, who is the CEO of Artivive. He is pioneering the creative world experience by bringing art to life through augmented reality, also known as AR. Mr. Sergio is he's proving that technology doesn't diminish creativity. It amplifies it. He's creating immersive experiences that deepen our connection to art and culture. Please welcome Mr. Sergio to the stage.
Thank you. I'll just set up my computer. I have some slides as well, and some videos. Let's see if everything works. So, it's never about technology. I'm Sergio Ardalan. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Artivive, which is an augmented reality platform for creatives. We have more than 650,000 creatives on our platform. We're working with institutions like museums and arts and culture institutions, as well as universities. And being in the XR space, that means augmented reality, virtual reality, mixed reality, we are seeing how hard it is to find really important and use cases that are adding value. Amy and I were discussing a lot about this because most of these startups, most of these products are very much concerned about the technology. And I was as well. Before starting Artivive, I was working on building an augmented reality agency which was called Innovation Rocks, and we were the first ones to use augmented reality in marketing. Therefore, we also won some of the biggest clients like Volkswagen and Porsche. We worked with them in 42 countries. We also opened an office in Shanghai. And what we learned here was that, first of all, we had a lot of fun building these use cases where you could scan your car, try different drinks on, see how the technology is working. We also had an implementation where you could sit in the car and scan the dashboard and receive all the information about the dashboard. And after years and years developing these campaigns, we just saw that the user numbers weren't getting there. Being on the creative side, I started having interviews with people from all over the world, trying to understand why. And at the end, we just learned it was a gimmick. It didn't really add any value to the product or to the experience. It was a nice to have. It was interesting to scan a catalog or to scan the real car and see the rings. But it wasn't the shortest way to get to this information. The shortest way would be through a website. It would be through the catalog that you have in front of you. So I tried to understand how can we create value by leveraging this technology. Because most of the times, also in our case, we had the technology, we had the opportunity, so we tried to build products and experiences on it. But after 10 years in the space, I decided to go into more creative approach. So I started working together with creatives and institutions like museums. And I brought you an example from one of the museums in Vienna, where I'm coming from. This is Belvedere, which has a wonderful collection for many hundreds of years. And it's very hard for them to tell the stories of these artworks. Because what we have today are the audio guides, which were invented in the 50s, some more than 17 years ago. And they're also very hard to follow because you get a lot of information and then you have to process it and somehow try to position it in the exhibition that you are in. In this case, I selected an artwork which is from Egon Schiele, an Austrian painter, and he depicted his wife. But we found out together with the museum that in the first version of this painting, Edith looked like this. When he presented the painting to the director of the time at the museum, the director said, unfortunately, she is dressed too poorly. She's not necessarily matching the style and the fine arts museum that I want to build. So what happened was that Schiele went back to his studio and overpainted the painting into this version. But this story tells us so much about the time, about the painter, about the painting itself, about his life and what he went through. Now, today, he's celebrated and these paintings are selling for millions of dollars. So what we did was, leveraging this technology, we were able to show exactly what he changed and also tell the story and recreate the first version and bring it closer to the visitors in the museum. And something very interesting happened then afterwards. People put the phone away, went closer to the painting and started seeing the elements of the first version. You can see some of the orange of the first version, you can see the lines maybe from the checkered skirt. And that was the moment that it went click with me. Because it wasn't about the technology, they weren't interested in how cool augmented reality is and how it worked, but more in the story of the artwork. And this is actually also what they're taking with them. Based on this, we started working with different museums all over the world, trying different approaches from telling the story, telling how the artist is working, how the technique that is behind the artworks, maybe also here with the guy where he incorporated dreams that he had in small details that you can find in the painting. We went also one step further and we worked together with another museum in Vienna where we allowed the visitors to be part of the painting. This was years ago, and we were surprised how a museum managed to create content that went viral. We had people standing in line to the front of the museum to come in and be able to record themselves with these Dürer rings. Working with many museums in Vienna, we started going back to the marketing, to the telling stories part, and we born an idea in the city of Vienna that I would like to share with you.
For years, Vienna has been celebrated as one of the most livable cities in the world. But it also ranks among the most unfriendly. But why exactly are the people of this charming, deeply cultured city so grumpy? Could it be the art? Maybe it rubbed off on the Viennese, making unfriendliness socially acceptable over the centuries. Well then, let's try something new. So that even Vienna can't help but smile. In a unique cross-museum initiative starting on World Smile Day, Vienna will be putting on a completely different face. And we are offering exclusive tours with art expert Marcus Hugel for anyone who takes art seriously. Let him explain why Viennese are so grumpy and what art has to do with it. As you know, smiling is contagious, even if it's just for one moment, or maybe two.
What I love about this project is that we managed to change the narrative. We brought something into the museum without changing anything in the museum. We managed to tell a story across 5 museums without really involving them. We just choose some of the artworks and we were able to tell a story across the city where the tourists, the visitors, and also the locals were able to go and have this experience just by adding a digital layer. And based on this, we opened the platform that we have today to creators. And we said, this is what we did with institutions. Now use this technology to tell your stories. Use the bridge between reality and something that is happening, something that is out there with your power to tell stories digitally. And I choose 2 examples because these 2 inspired me, and I also have a bunch of postcards that you can pick up from the booth that we have here. One of these artworks is also one of the postcards. And what happens here is on the left side you see an artwork that has a lot of details, which are maybe hard to see because our brain can process just 5 elements at the same time. Otherwise we have to look a bit closer. So what we tend is just being passed by. But when the animation comes, something very interesting happens. Our lizard brain is just looking at the details that are moving. So in this way, the creative can shift and direct the attention to these details. And when you start seeing the details, you start seeing a bigger picture of it. On the right side, we have something that is very hard to recognize what it is. It has a very interesting texture, it's on a background, so it's hard for us to identify what it is. It's like a lot of question marks. But the moment that it starts moving and we recognize what it is, our brain gets rewired and we only see the true element that is displayed. And these are just 2 examples of hundreds of how creatives are able to use this technology to create new narratives, new experiences. And I'm going back to the part that it's not about the technology. It's about what you do with the technology. It's about the value that you create. The moment that you create something and people are talking about the experience, the value, what they cherish about it, and the technology is not mentioned, it's the moment that you succeed. I would like also to share some of the other examples that you can find from our community. If it's in fashion, if it's posters, or even tattoos. Creatives can find a way to bridge these 2 worlds. And I think looking into the future, there are a lot of questions of where is augmented reality, virtual reality going? We have now the AR glasses, they are coming for the last 10 years, if not longer. And also with AI, the moment that we can add a different story, we can change the narrative, we can add information that is needed, then this technology will succeed. Thank you very much. I would love to stay in contact with you. Whoever wants to get connected on LinkedIn, this is my QR code, and I'm looking forward to have lots of chats afterwards. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. We will now be having a CTO panel led please request the moderator, Ms. Aditi Kothari, who is a strategic thinker who understands both the technical and organizational dimensions of AI transformation, to welcome the guest on stage.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us here today. For the panel, we have 4 engineering leaders joining us today who work at different scales, at different contexts, but are facing similar challenges. And we will be here discussing all of that today. Please join me in welcoming Vinay, who is the CTO of Landmark.
Junicorn or optically will be trained.
Pawan, who is the VP of Engineering at Moneypoint Group. Kiran Chandra, who is the CTO at Kavi AI. And Kiran Karesi, who is the CTO of Atomic Work.
No, that's only the innovative stand-up discussion.
So different weekend stand.
It's an engineering stand-up. Yeah, exactly. Faster on the feet than you think and answer.
So, I think this is the true spirit of entrepreneurship. If there is a problem, you don't wait for it to fix, you solve it yourself. So, thank you for getting the chairs. And yeah, without any delay, let's get started. I'm Aditi Kothari, I'm CEO of Spot by AI. We work with engineering leaders to automate and augment core parts of the software development lifecycle using AI. The role of engineering leadership is changing faster than ever. AI has moved from experimentation to reshaping how engineering teams are built and scaled. The real questions are where AI gets leverage, what leaders should trust it with, what's working, what's not, and why. This panel today is not about hype or distant predictions. It's about discussing how engineering has been shaped using AI in the last 36 months. Leaders here operate at different scales and contexts, but are facing similar challenges. And that's what we are going to discuss here. Starting with the first question for the panel today, Pawan. If you had to point out to one visible behavioral change in your engineering team since GenAI adoption, what would be that?
First of all, good morning everyone. I am shout out to the organizers and Junicorns. The first thing that comes to my mind is the exploration and the judgment density, also the iteration density. What we are doing right now is shifting AI more upstream. Coming from fintech, for us, the critical systems need to be very, very correct, right? So, building these RFCs, technical design documentation, involves a lot of system thinking, and AI is definitely making an impact. Sound engineers stand out more. I think that's a very, very important behavior change. Judgment has increased quite a bit. There's a need to validate work, and people are learning how to validate
With AI, there is a tendency to jump straight to what the solution is and the outcome or the output without really understanding how it's being done, right? So if you don't get to the basics of what it is, then you will never really be generating the right output. You might feel happy for 30 seconds, half an hour that it's worked, but will it scale and work at a production level, or can it sustain itself without getting hacked? And do you even know whether your OpenAPI keys are actually being exposed in your production? You don't know, right? So there are some fundamentals. I think my advice to even senior developers and youngsters is get the basics right. So even if it is programming language or how you build systems, at the end of the day, if you're a software engineer, you're solving somebody's problem. So understand how you go about solving that problem. That is super important. Then get the fundamentals and basics right on the programming language, and then you can evaluate what the AI is telling you. Don't just become a slave or believe everything the AI is outputting, because then you're going to go down the completely wrong path.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Pre-AI information was leveraged, now it is not anymore. So having fundamentals strong really gives you that edge. Kiran, you have been an engineering leader for over 2 decades. Is there a certain use case that you are seeing that's helping engineers leverage AI faster? Maybe testing, debugging, coding, any particular trends that you have observed?
Yeah, a very good morning to everyone. So, what essentially happened with this Gen AI coming into place is that anything that we were doing in the digital world, it has leveled it up. I think it's a new level playing field has emerged. The basic work of coding, or you would say the white coding which is coming out, anything that you solve in the digital world can be solved faster. And how efficient does a senior developer does, and how does a newbie getting into the system does. There's a very small difference in solving the digital problems. And the entire phase in which, the way in which people are consuming it is to build automated solutions faster, but not autonomous solutions, for instance. Harnessing AI is essentially going to be how you build autonomous systems in place, and not automation that we have been doing around. And when I speak about it, development, I would say coding, debugging, testing are more or less going to be extinct. I think the Gen AI tools are going to basically solve it. Where the events are, when we were getting into the early days of the digital era, where the syntax was solved by the IDEs, that was a phase shift. That was 2 decades back. A similar kind of a situation on a further higher iteration is what we are seeing. And what is the critical change and the challenge that still needs to be solved is on the design phase of it. The engineering piece of stitching everything together is something where the human intervention is still going to be a very important thing. That is where I think the other speakers also have been pointing out that the first principle thinking needs to be there. Strong foundational understanding and the mathematical relationships are something which are going to be a differentiator for somebody at work, particularly while building the autonomous function. And if you see, now we are just getting into the agentic world. Getting into the agentic world, it is going to be a combinatorial effort of human beings and the agentic systems. That is going to be a key distinctive factor.
If planning and design is done.
If you switch off Excel, the whole world will stop. I mean, that's a reality. And when you look at whether it's payroll or whether it's supply chain or whether it's under modernization umbrella, would you go hire a consultant? Would you hire additional headcount to actually move them away from spreadsheets to a new application? Or would you say, here is AI, they're already experimenting with AI, will you allow them to go white code or build their own applications as Excel users, right? And I think that's the kind of thinking that's going to go through. So, which means there is not going to be a heavy rush to add significant headcount. people who are already in the teams are expected to do things differently. So the expectation changes in terms of the role, and what you're doing today will be different to what you're going to be doing tomorrow. Right? And that is invariably going to change. And the expected timeline in which you're going to get is going to be driven by the whole PR that's going to come through in the on LinkedIn or in the press, where everybody from IBM to SAP to Salesforce to everyone else is going to be claiming, I've let go of so many people and then I've improved the productivity kind of narrative will increase the expectation of all the leaders in all organizations to get more done, to Pawan's point. So that is where I think it's going to be.
Understood. That makes sense. Question to Kiran, you and Kiran, you. As an engineering leader, has your buying behavior changed over the years? Are you taking faster decisions and trusting all the generative AI tools more? And this is not limited to engineering tools, even beyond any, SaaS powered by AI.
So in the new shift, right, so which is basically maybe if you take 2023 or something like that, so that is when the consolidation never happened, right? So to build a factory, you are actually first looking at the tools which can able to generate the value. Then there you can need to spend. There is a lot of curiosity in terms of what actually that tool does. There might be 3 or 4 tools you end up actually buying and testing out because everybody is into the market for the first time. But ultimately what we are changing, we are actually changing the workflow, which is your development workflow. You're changing end to end, which is like a factory producing things. Now the consolidation is happening now, which is actually, let's say I want a predictable workflow to generate something, that consolidation is actually happening. So now we are not actually buying any buyers, we are actually building the tools which can able to produce the output. So that is where we are as a company. I think so every industry is actually doing it. So in a different stages, right? So as a startup, I have more leverage to actually try to experiment way faster. But for a said and done, standardized protocol, they need to have some time to get into it. But everybody actually moving towards actually changing their development.
Yeah, I think I agree with Kiran also on this, but more than just buying out the tools, whatever are coming into the market, there is an openness, more openness in looking at what is coming out. But when you look at different kinds of the LLMs that are existing, even the one that they provide a service, in more or less in 15 days, all the features, the differentiator is gone. So we need to continuously look at the GenAI tools that are coming out, and maybe we should definitely leverage. And one important factor that needs to be factored in is the return on investment on whatever we are spending. That is only the thing that matters. And I think there isn't any matured way of actually calculating that exists as of now, because everybody is still doing it. And on the cost of even building our own systems internally, aligning it with the flows, the agility is something which needs to be at the speed of lightning, where everybody is trying hard to really cope up with. I think this is a very transient nature of it is still existing at the moment. And the differentiator of any tool that comes out is only very short-lived, at the most 15 days or 20 days. If Claude comes, brings something out, we see its reflections in other tools as well in 15 to 20 days at max. I think that key differentiator by the time we realize. So I think, but we need to be open to anything that is coming in, experimentation, because that I look at it from a perspective of the organizational behavior, where the entire workforce looks at it and that innovative mindset continues to grow.
Great points. Just building on the same question, Vinay, you have a large workforce. If given a choice, you can build the tools yourself in-house. How do you navigate that decision of buying versus building in-house now with generative AI progressing so fast?
Yeah, I think just building on my earlier example of Excel spreadsheets, right? Building something in-house has to be compared against the adoption, right? nothing has changed from the earlier days of buy versus build, or how do we go looking at navigating what we need. So if there is a problem to be solved, you can go buy the solution from a big box vendor or a small SME, or you can build it yourself. The criteria for figuring out which one you're going to go with hasn't significantly changed. But where you would actually put more marks in your criteria is if you allow the question really is who's going to build it in-house. I think earlier it used to be the IT team that was going to build. But today, the balance has shifted. You will expect, you can't stop white coding in your own organization, right? So I think there are two parts to it. Business functions building their own apps that will help them do their own thing. I think some of the leaders will argue, including myself, you should encourage and let them do it, but put governance and structures that allow you to get them to do it. Second thing, from a software engineering point of view, you would want the engineers to take ownership of what they want to do. Like, in a few years ago, we were talking about CI/CD, we were talking about test automation. All of those things where there is a higher adoption and maintainability and belief that is going to improve the productivity and embedding into the workflow and the culture of the teams, you would definitely build it. But that doesn't mean that we will stop buying things. We will definitely continue to buy things, but I think the balance is going to shift towards bespoke solutions which are aimed at workflows that are specific to certain engineering organization or enterprises that will become more prevalent where we start moving.
Very well said. How you work in a regulated sector? What is your biggest concern of using AI, and does it scare you in any way?
Yeah, definitely it's scary. The landscape is changing so fast, and we need to be subject matter experts when it comes to AI as well to actually truly use it to its core. So correctness, and there are multiple aspects coming from a fintech. The security, compliance, not just like building systems, to how it should function. So AI needs to solve for those as well for us to truly adapt fully.
Makes sense. I think accuracy and security are general concerns for everybody, whether it's a small startup or like a Fortune 500 company. Coming to the last part of our panel today, if in one line all of you had to give one advice to engineering leaders on AI adoption and how they can leverage it the best and keep up with every change that's happening in the world, what would that be, starting from you?
Yeah, so think of this way, right? So we are actually going from a gardening to industrial farming. So which means that now it is only not one developer who can able to leverage become 10x, but there are actually ways people can able to do think in systems so that as a whole organization you can able to leverage, right? It's not only the organizations. In fact, we are in the Junicorn, so that is something I was actually talking to my friend. So now you can able to build like I know there is one YC startup which did a TikTok-based language understanding. So it's a 3-member team who's actually doing a $50 million of revenue. You can do the same thing somebody from Tirupati or in Delhi, right? So my own hometown. So I was so excited to actually have it. That change happens, which is basically you actually can able to do these initiatives within 1-member team or a 2-member team where you can able to do it. And now most of the time organizations should spend on to actually do the taste refinement. So I actually has this how to do it, and you keep refining because the hypothesis became so cheap. I can able to do that 3-4 hypotheses in parallel, can able to select one and can able to deploy. Right? So that is where things are happening. But I don't see now there is any friction for organizations to adopt how they develop. They are actually moving towards how to do it, right? So they are actually trying to find patterns how to adopt.
Yeah, and I would summarize it as experiment and learn, right? I think as a leader, the question I want all the leaders to ask themselves is how much of experimentation and learning are they going through personally, right? I think if you can figure out how to experiment and learn, then you can enable your teams to experiment and learn.
build the ecosystem with guardrails and not mandates. Even if you start today, you're probably in the top 5%. So don't hesitate to start and go for your low and invisible optimizations that you have that you could into agentic AI.
Yeah. And openness is something which is going to be elementary. And if we already have a workforce, transforming the workforce is the most challenging part of it. And I think if you're starting afresh, start with only lean teams.
Thank you so much. Super insightful answers and discussion. I hope all of you also had a great time listening to all engineering leaders here. I definitely did. Thank you so much. We just have a small token of appreciation for all the panelists, so just a few minutes.
What an incredible panel that was, where we got so many insights from the incredible engineers that are revolutionizing the industry one step at a time. And for the next panel, we shall be having our moderator, Dr. Saintya Chaturvedi, who is the head of internal audit at Ajmal Perfumes, as well as the Secretary General in Indian Business and Professional Council, the largest Indian diaspora under the aegis of Dubai Chambers of Commerce, bringing expertise in governance and operations as well as finance. This panel will be about the international founders and investors. The UAE market represents extraordinary opportunity, but success requires understanding the nuances of this unique market. Please help me welcome Dr. Saintya to the stage.
Good morning, and thank you so much. The lovely session what we had recently, a packed forum with the CIOs, and the next session which has been invited from Indian Business and Professional Council. Let me give a little preamble to that. The Indian Business and Professional Council in Dubai is under the aegis of Dubai Chamber of Commerce, and today, as supportive to the Global Innovation Summit, which is jointly held by Global CIO Circle and the Indian Startup Foundation, we are so glad and humble to extend our support to the awesome audience, the entrepreneurs, the startups. As we all understand that today's focus is more on the opportunities and challenges of doing business in the UAE. The UAE has a transition from being the day is long with the recreation activities, enjoying and experiencing the deserts of Emirates. My panelists, my co-speakers today, I would like to invite Dr. Asaf Hussain on the stage. Dr. Asaf Hussain is a founder and chairman of Global Association of InsurTech Professionals. He is Secretary General of Insurance Business Group under the umbrella Global Chamber of Commerce. He is also the co-convener and mentor of BFSI Focus Group with Indian Business and Professional Council. Varying from the length of the experience and the deepness of the experience, Dr. Asaf comes from the experience of oil and gas, insurance, reinsurance, industry, startups, SMEs, large-scale corporates, and whatnot. Once the person or the professional is going to give you the insurance, I am against any risk. Another speaker, having 3 decades of experience, a chartered accountant, chairman of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of India in the UAE, the convener of accountants, advisors, and the auditors focus group of Indian Business and Professional Council, Mr. Chartered Accountant James Matthew. One side, we saw that how the risk can be mitigated with insurance. The other speaker comes that how the risks can be identified and what are the solutions to mitigate those risks. My other co-panelist today comes from a banking background. The gentleman, Dr. Nilay Rajan. He is CEO, Chief Executive Officer of State Bank of India in Dubai, BIFC. Dr. Nilay has a vast experience starting from the agricultural background. When I say agricultural background, not with the crops, with the crops of finance. The banking at the agriculture segment, startups, SMEs, international banking, and today CEO at the State Bank of India. The other speaker who is going to take on a star on the stage, I am glad and with pride I can mention Ms. Rima Mahajan is with us. Rima is IIT, Rima is IIM alumni, Rima is a corporate advisor, and Rima has founded, established an organization for Indian women in the UAE and have connected with a large membership of women entrepreneurs, women homemakers, even the startups. 150,000 women are connected with that organization. So Rima is with us. A big round of applause. And I would like to moderate this session with a few of the catchy questions. It is going to be interesting. It is going to be really fireside chat sometimes. And the young man and ladies and gentlemen, get ready to take your notes. Gear up with your pen or the laptop or the notepads, because the session is going to address how to set up business, but what are the challenges. Same time, which are the opportunities, but which are the risks, and if there are the risks, then how to mitigate those. So, compact session is going to start now.
Yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, yes, now I have to balance our voice, that is. So the first question I would like to begin with our hero. The CIOs are always audited. The previous session was with the CIOs, and I am also chartered accountant, but generally whenever we begin the audit, we start from the systems. But I am not going to ask about the systems, I am going to ask about the settings. Second is not the Indian setting, not the Jugaad wala setting. Now my setting is how to set up a business in the UAE. Mr. James Matthew.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Sandhya, for that lovely introduction, and thank you all for joining today. Just wanted to set the context. How many of you are residing in the UAE? Can you just raise your hands? I just see around 3 or 4. So, rest of you are like, I believe that from India, right? All of you are, yes. So, let's start accountant from India, 33 years from here. Today, I'm more comfortable because as an auditor, I sit, my banker is sitting on my left side and my insurance guy is sitting on my right side. So, I'm very comfortable as an auditor today. So, thank you for all your panelists and for connecting. And before we get into the context of setting up a business, I know we got around 20-25 minutes, but just wanted to say today, UAE is attracting a lot of businesses. You know, I'm sure some of you have just read that 250,000 companies were set up in 2025 alone. Now, ever since the federal law changed in 2021, that 100% ownership came into the picture. You know, when we had almost like around 800,000 companies have been formed in the last 4 years' time. So this is the trend that's going to continue. So maybe by end of 2030, we are talking about 2 million companies coming into the UAE. That means there are a lot many opportunities, not just from India, but around the world. People are coming here, just flocking in, because the ease of doing business is all-time high, because the transformational trends which they have introduced. You know, I remember in 2010 or 2016, I think, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai, said, we are in the business of manufacturing opportunities. This is what the word here, Mr. Mustafa, you remember, he said that one. That, you know, this is what exactly he's been doing, and that is opening the doors for lots of businesses to come in. Now, some of you are in the startup businesses. See, prior to the COVID time, people never used to look at the startup businesses here, because we believe in seeing the real thing, real asset. So startups, investments alike in Canada, US, India, this is not a concept here, but Expo 2020 brought in a lot of opportunities for businesses to come in, and around 5,000 to 6,000 startups have been formed. We got dedicated free trade zones here, which is, you know, with the Brazilian OSS, the IFC and GM, all fintech companies are coming in large numbers. So I do not want to get into the nitty-gritties of you know, setting up a business, which of course is all available online, because the things are very, very clear and there is no regard attached to it. So I just wanted to say that there's a lot of opportunities for businesses to come in. Yeah, I will just pause here and maybe we'll ask and when the next question come up.
Please carry on. These are the words of wisdom, and it's a rare opportunity in such type of professionals are together on the stage and addressing the gathering. And we had the opportunity. So, as you mentioned, you are in very comfort zone, one side banker, one side insurer. Now I have to take you out from that comfort zone. So I will move to, I don't say that it is a discomfort zone, but yes, I go to much next step to the comfort zone. So Ms. Rima, my question is to you about the challenges and the common pitfalls. And in your opinion, as you are connected hundreds of thousands people on the daily basis, what are the common mistakes generally the Indian companies, while they are setting up the business or while they are operating the business over here, the startups, the new entrepreneurs, what are the common mistakes and what is your guidance?
Thank you so much, Sahitya sir, and it's an honor to be sitting on this panel with such keen gentlemen here. I work with founders, decision makers, operators every day, and I think the biggest pitfall that I feel is UAE is not a short-term revenue play for any Indian company looking to come abroad. The first thing when you come to UAE is you need to think of localization. You know, the practices of selling in India to a price-sensitive market might not work in UAE because UAE is more of a value-driven market. Customer service is key here, providing value for what you are servicing or offering is very, very important. People are ready to pay if you have the right product and service. The second thing is also thinking that compliance comes second. In India, we tend to innovate and then see regulation will follow later. Here, regulation comes first and compliance comes first before you even establish it. Before you set up a company, I'm sure my colleagues will tell you, you need to get a company license, you need to know the regulations in your industry, you need to be VAT compliant, and so many other things which come with the infrastructure of setting up a company. Having said that, the UAE government is very supportive. The system works as long as you want to work with it. So you can't do the Indian jugaad here. You have to follow the system, and if you are compliant enough, you have a lot of big market to go after. So that's what I say.
Thank you so much, Rima. Very well said. Okay, let me also ask a question here because I can see many students, research workers, the aspirants to set the business. How many of you know the full form of CEPA? CEPA. So you are the veteran. I'm asking the audience who have landed to UAE with the aspiration to do something better with. The CEPA, I'm talking, don't go to Google, we can talk now. CEPA, CEPA, is an agreement termed as Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, which is made between the UAE and India. It was signed in February 2022. 3 years are completed. Became effective from May 2022, which is giving almost 0% import duty, custom duties on 99% commodities while importing from India to UAE. And likewise, the many relaxation on the sales and the duties and the taxation have been provided from exporting from UAE to India. These Indian customs have made a lot many relaxations, the charges and the custom duties. And that has supported 100 billion USD business per year. Once we talk 99% commodities, means almost every type of the trade. And beyond that, it is about the digital trade. The digital trade, the first time is defined in the world in this agreement. Prior to that, there was no dictionary definition for the digital trade. This agreement and the lobby, the panel over here, have been part of designing that agreement. I take my next question to Dr. Afa Hussain, who comes from insurance background, but as insurance background is a central point for every type of the business or every type of the GDU. So my question to you, Dr. Afa, the India and UAE CEPA is often described as a game changer. From your experience, how has CEPA translated into tangible business?
Thank you, sir. Already you replied to that answer half that what is CEPA and what changes it brought to the country. Since it was very good, like when you asked how many people were coming from overseas here, And I can see a very thin margin of people are here who are residents, and most of us are from. I always say that we have two Bhumi. My Mata Bhumi, where I was born, Karam Bhumi, where I am here. So those people, they are coming from my motherland. So definitely they are all my brothers and sisters here. So we always try to share our experiences and to pull them in the main economy. And that's we should all look into it. So that India, which today is shining, is growing. If we don't do that, we will not justify our role overseas, staying no matter for 3 decades or 5 decades. So that's what. Now coming to Dr. Sykes, his question was that how it is a game changer. He replied already about there are many custom duties which was levied on many particular activities which has already been made. But if I talk about financial segments, and especially on insurance, insurtech, and many of the people who are from that particular industry, fintech as well, there has been a lot of relaxation. When India, when they have opened the door, when they started Gift City in Ahmedabad, that was the time when we were thrilled that at least as a foreign companies, we are allowed to have a bilateral trade agreement, bilateral investment agreement, whereas we can participate in insurance companies and take 50%. That particular point of time, even less than 50%, 25, 26% of time, not mistaken, was there. Today, we are talking about 100%. So that's the big thing where we can think of both sides. Any Indian company can come, invest here, established companies or startup, 100%. And you can also think of fly from here. If someone wants to move to their own country, India, to establish 100% on the financial segment. Anything to do with insurtech or fintech or even the insurance companies at this particular moment. So this is the main thing. And customers, as I said, was because our economy, especially in UAE, was not driven, or Dubai in particular, if you talk about, on oil. We were driven on trade. Trade was the main pillar of the economy. So that was a game changer for all of us in the trading segment.
Absolutely, absolutely. You put your profit. PhD, you came on the subject, giving the wider context that how and why CIPA and the change is important and why it is game changer. My next question comes to Dr. Rajan, the State Bank of India. Prior to that, I would like to mention that we are celebrating Pravasi Bharatiya Divas. As I saw the International Startup Foundation with the symbol of Mahatma Gandhi, the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas is inspired by the journey of Mahatma Gandhi, who came on 9th January 1915 from South Africa to India. And that inspired in 2015 to shape a Pravasi Bharatiya Award, and we as Indian organization are celebrating that occasion. Yesterday we had a big mega celebration, and that celebration is continuation of the discussion today about India with the category with the startups. So, Dr. Rajan, my question is absolutely about banking, but not in India. I am going to ask about UAE. The banking access generally seen as a concern and remains a constraint to the new entrants. When they don't have legacy or balance sheets, and opening the account. What are the current realities? Consider digital banking or whatever, but in general perspective for the new entrants, what do you say about to start a bank account in the banking relationship?
Thank you, Seti. In fact, Sitting in with James and Rina, it was very difficult to answer anything.
Is that me, huh?
Sahitya, I cannot believe it was in like me and you, we have to argue with everything. No, the fact is, starting the company here in UAE is the easiest. You have it, I think there is an app in that page where you can manage 2 hours. Opening a bank account in UAE takes almost 3 months. Sometimes even after 3 months you'll not be able to have that. So I'll be very very critical because I just want to give you the activities. So really everything, SafePath 28 countries, I think UAE has signed SafePath 28 countries, India has done 13. The most important thing is that what any company can do, that when you come here, you can get the now UAE corporate citizenship. So the company can be considered as a corporate citizen, and you can get the benefit which the UAE companies are getting. So consider it being a UAE company, you can reach out to all 28 countries where the SEPA has been signed. So the vast market is there. So why you have to come to the space? Because you can reach out across the world. Coming to the ranking, what happens that Yuvan has been used so many times. So I don't want to be the outlier, I also want to have that. What is very difficult that when you start the company, you just want to start the company. And then you have so many documents, and as I had said earlier, compliance is most important. For us, C comes before me. So compliance before business. So it has to be compliant business. We don't have the documents. Opening account is very difficult. If they are asking questions, you are not in a position to answer it. The providing documents has been one of the process. We open one account in 2 days. But I'm not talking about in general why it becomes difficult because you have opened the account and you want to show the documents. You don't have enough documents because you have given it to some agency, they have opened the account and they got the fee and then it is over. So that is the first thing. When you are going for the finance, I always say people have banking as a part of finance. But it is always a banking and finance. So banking is very difficult and different from finance. I was talking with some gentleman yesterday. He came in everything over there. So, okay, you have to have e-book, EEB. It's good. But then you do the bankability study. Will it is bankable or not? So if you reach out to the bank, the places are very different. It is not in the syllabus. So you have to be very practical why you are doing it. You are very fascinated. I am very happy about what you are doing. It's your passion, it should be your money. What is your idea? Very practically, I have to understand whether you will be able to return the money. For me, return on investment is important, but more than that, it is return of investment, which I have been doing. So as a banker, I see the first thing, return of investment, then only return on investment. As an entrepreneur, you have to see whether when you are going to the bank, these are the questions you will be able to answer. You have everything, but these are very sketchy things. I've seen n number of times. And now the best of the days, I mean, almost I have seen that I have almost, I don't know, 5 or 6 million in just 1 year. I see, I meet them, I tell them, look, it will not be done. And after 1 year, I know that they never come back. Sometimes they come twice, they have big names. But these are the names, I do not care. For me, I am giving money, I have to get my money. So when you go to the bank, even for the opening of the account, you must have all the documents, you just see what are the things. 5 or 6 things are required. But then you just take all 5 or 6 things are there. When you are going for financing, you have to understand your budget, you are understanding. What is your passion? You have to understand what are the things there in, what is required, what will be the return, what is the market. It is a real market or it is just showing the market because everyone is doing it. CAGR is one of the over-rated thing because if you see key research, there will be CAGR. Even I was trying to check what is the status of the Chinese renminbi in the global market. 3 agencies, the top 3 agencies, having 3 different figures. Europe, I think, I'll say, International Energy Congress, they have 3-4, let's say, 3-4 agencies. So ultimately, when you are coming to the bank, very clear, you be ready for the top questions. And you prepare your top questions, and then when you are coming to the bank, it is very easy to get the finance. So it's not that we do not finance. We are still like the code, the best consumer bank in the world. We have been recently awarded the fourth most trusted bank, but not the state bank, any bank. We are going there, you have to remember 2 things. I have to get my money back. It's your money, you can stay anywhere.
Well said. The return of investment and the return on investment. Very well summarized. Thank you so much, Dr. Nilarajan. We will be taking the last question now as the time is up. The red light is shown on my screen. But that last question will be because there was Mr. James Smith who wanted to add on something and we cannot hold that back. I think we wanted to talk something in between of the export and re-export because UAE is known as the hub for the re-export business.
So Satya, before I get into that one, probably, I can give a little bit of priority to this particular subject. See, maybe 5 years back, when the tax VAT and corporate tax which came in a couple of years back, there was no one from India wanting to look at this space to set up their businesses. Because I've been in the UAE for the last 30 plus years. When we speak to entrepreneurs in India, you send some son or daughter to the business, set up the business here, move here. They said, no, we are too busy, we cannot send anybody out to the UAE. Now, the tax laws has become strict on one side, but here there is a 9% corporate tax which is coming. I'll explain to you in 1 minute. So, if someone who is exporting business or items from India to different parts of the world, UAE is like a 10 million people, but the economy of MENA region, which is UAE, you can call it as a platform. We're talking for 6 trillion economy, which is the MENA, which is around 500 million plus people living in this MENA region. So UAE has always been setting up itself as a platform for people to start a business and move into the different parts of the MENA region. So if the goods are going from India to Africa, and then it used to be directly weighed, but now the trend has come in that you set up a designated zone office here in the UAE, and you still, the goods will go direct, but your shipment, your documents will go through on Swiss PL, and you just send a third-party shipment with the goods are going direct there. So long as you fulfill a few conditions like transfer pricing, the economic substance, and the compliance part of it, whatever income you are earning here is tax-free. So this has attracted so many of the businesses internationally to come and set up the business here, number one. Number two, now, Trump announced 50% tariffs for goods manufactured from India. Now, ever since that thing came up, there was a huge rush for businesses to move here to set up their business in the manufacturing, where you can have 35-40% value addition here. Then you get a certificate of origin from this country, made in Emirates, and you go export this item to the America, and you get a 10% tax, which is 50 minus 10, 40% saving on it, and plus subject to the qualifying income generated within the free trade zone, which is 0% tax again. So you see the advantage for businesses. Now there is a huge rush for people, owners of the businesses in India, and they are sending their sons and daughters. They say something called a concept, I'm sure everybody knows, place of effective management. They cut them from all the directorship, ownership, everything, and they move here. So this is, at this 250,000 companies, what we are talking about, is people from not just from India, it's from the UK, you got a new regulation which is non-domicile regulation which has come in. A lot of UK nationals, European nationals, they are all moving here. So I think this is going to continue. So I will not take any more time. I just wanted to say this one. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. Last point is Rima. One sentence, because there are a lot of youngsters here. One sentence, your message to the youngsters here. And then we will be concluding this session.
I think we love to welcome all the youngsters here. UAE is a hub of AI, innovation and trust. But come here for a long-term play, don't come here for a holiday.
Thank you so much. So I conclude over here, and we thank and extend our regards, best wishes to the Global Innovation Summit. Thank you.
was an insightful panel, and I see a lot of head nods at the fact that when Trump proposed the tariff, everyone agreed about why moving to the UAE was a useful investment. Next, we shall be having our co-chair of the evening, and Mr. Langali, moderate the next panel. He is the Chief Business Officer at Atomic Work and the bridge between enterprise needs and startup innovation. Can we please welcome him on stage?
Alright, this is going to be a rapid session. We're going to make up quite a bit of time. I told them to condense this to 20 minutes, and thank you for being here. Basically, we need to get to the pitches right after this. So that, I wanted to bring you a panel. Abhinav Shah is actually fallen sick because he was traveling and then came here from Norway and UK trip, and he called us and told us that he's unable to make it. So the panel is now Mr. Gopalatham, please come up to the stage. And he's the EVP and Global CIO of Philips. And Raj Kalhasti is the CIO of the Baldwin Group, please come on stage. And Prasad Ramakrishnan is the ex-CIO of Freshworks, and he's also, all of these are traveling from abroad to come please take your seats. And Mohammed Baning is Lieutenant and the Senior Global Director of IT and Security. He's joining from UAE here from local IT and CIO. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining the panel. This is going to be something we've done. This is an art of a CIO. You can give them anything, they will speak. So I am not worried about anything. I didn't give them any questions. I didn't tell them what we're going to be talking about. All I told them is those startups and AI adoption and enterprises. And it's like, you can ask them to sleep, they will answer these questions. So first question. Obviously, all of you are coming from a, other than obviously from Prasad, moderately large institution in terms of, but I think all of you are actually employees of sites more than 3,000, 4,000, even 10,000, 50,000 employees. Most enterprises are actually going from trying AI to adopting AI, and the adoption rate at which they're moving is now going to be a test because they're not small. They need to go through the regulations, compliance, security, data security, so many other things that needs to be done. What are the things that you started seeing as a shift that is happening that to make that adoption faster in enterprises, because otherwise they will be out of business pretty soon? Well,
so I think the key thing to remember is that when you're dealing with a large organization, you need about 50,000, 60,000, 70,000 people in our case to adopt something.
Yeah.
Almost always solutions end up being point solutions. Right? When you have a point solution, it solves a particular problem. It's very difficult to scale that. What large organizations look for is end-to-end capabilities, which is much harder. And therefore, I think the key thing to remember is whatever solution you develop, make sure that it fits into the broader architecture of the customer that you're selling it to. We've had the same discussion with Atomic Work, for example, right? It really needs to fit our architecture, and it really needs to deliver end-to-end value. If it just enables a task or a simple process here or there, it's much more difficult to get it adopted at scale. That's key thing.
Agree. Raj, obviously you've been, by the way, one thing about Raj is that he was awarded RB's National CIO of the Year in the US, and it's not a small feat to get that award. It has to be nominated, but everybody says an Indian CIO getting an entire country's recognition as a CIO is not a small feat. But you won that because you've been a pioneer in mobilizing the ecosystem, working with other CIOs, championing AI adoption. Your experience at Baldwin of driving that various experimentation of AI is something that I've witnessed and we spoke about at length. Can you share what really the challenge, or what was the reason and how you were able to really bring that culture into an organization at a small size?
Thanks, Lynn. I think we have Sergio talked about one slide that stuck with me, which is how we approach it. It's not about technology. I think that was the key thing. We didn't approach it from a technology perspective. I think the cross-functional C-suite approached it from strategy perspective, and really about how AI can be the force multiplier. I think that's the foundational aspect of it from a firm perspective. The second thing is the cultural aspect, which is a lot of people say it's, hey, that's very fast and that's okay, but a lot of people don't have the stomach for it. I think that's where it comes to the C-suite that it makes it a lot more easier to say, hey, you really failed, that's okay. That's why we work on it, right? I think those two, along with obviously enterprise trust and security and governance. So the three of those elements, what I would call it, the strategy, the approach, the cultural aspect of accepting failure. The third one is governance. I think those form the foundation, and I call it the foundation before the fireworks.
Yeah.
So get that right, and then we can get the other.
I totally agree. I mean, you have to.
Actually, your boss says it's okay to fail.
Yes.
But what they never tell you is don't make it a habit.
You're right. Yeah. And so Prasad, from a Silicon Valley guy and part of the growth of a startup to an IPO company, you've seen it all from being a startup growing into an IPO company of what it is. But what was your takeaway in that growth sprouts? The agility, the ability to really adapt, and then become the company to be respected by others. Because it's very important for a founder as a startup and also transitioning to an IPO company. It's like a growing child becoming responsible for taking on responsibilities that they have not planned for. What can you share that you need to be really careful about?
Yeah, see, if you try to solve problems that are non-existent and try to imagine new problems, you're not going to be successful. The best solutions are the ones which takes an existing business problem, an existing pain point, and solves it in an elegant way, right? So don't try to be the one who's trying to imagine a new problem, right? So I think another key learning, right? If you take, for example, the ITSM market or the customer support market, these are problems that every single company has, right? It's just trying to come up with a better way to solve that problem statement, make it easier for customers. Like take a travel, for example, right? Instead of just making it a ticketing-based system, make it a conversation-based system, which is where go meet the employee where they are spending most of their time, and make it elegant for them to submit tickets and get back the responses. Instead of starting with the same paradigm, there's a better way to do customer support, right? And I think that's where the whole AI also comes in, right? Don't try to imagine AI for problems that don't exist. Take a valid problem statement and figure out, can I use AI, can I use available technology to solve this problem elegantly, and that's where you have a play in terms of making it safe as well.
That's great. Actually, coming back to you, Mohammed, obviously Rakuten became Rakuten from Japan conglomerate to a global enterprise, 2 acquisitions. I mean, you guys are the acquisition kings everywhere. And actually brought in, and then, adapting the culture from Japan to the US to the UAE to everywhere that you have businesses. We're more than 10,000, I think maybe even 20,000 now.
Sorry, more than that, more than 50,000.
50,000, but I mean, I was just looking for the numbers, and I will tell you how rapidly you're growing and acquiring companies. It's one thing to acquire a company and trying to make sure that they're actually operated, and IT is a essential central component that connects the dots of employees to the systems, to the security, to internal products, to the external customers. One thing that people don't understand or may not know, why CIOs sleep less and keep the phone next to them. And you are operating the IT and security being here as a global IT director. Tell us a little bit about what challenges that you deal with most people don't.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks again for asking the question here. I mean, my life for the past 2 years has been a nightmare. Definitely having the CEO of Rakuten Mobile, especially, we had every 6 months an M&A, an acquisition, for very small enterprise to very big ones, like 2,000, 3,000 people to onboard into our ecosystems. So you said it very well. The Rakuten has been growing by acquisition. We are having more than 80 services globally, from a bank perspective to an e-commerce perspective. So the scope is very large. So when my stakeholders and my C-level come over saying, we need to onboard here, it's not only IT, to be very honest with you. We have legal, we have compliance, we have security, like I said here. And really depending on what is the nature of the businesses, if I have to give one word, is agility. So how we can make our ecosystem and systems agile to onboard people. We are not US very company. So we know that US are coming with their books, we take GE, we take other ones, they have 2 years roadmap, go. Japanese, they are more into the consortium, they are more into the agility and how they pick the processes in order to build the ecosystem and to enhance the business. So the key challenge I had to have on the table was the compliance in terms of regulations. So every country in Europe, US, even here in UAE, has their own compliances and governance that we have to talk with, and their in terms of governance as well. So for me, it was just like non-anonymous, definitely, and as well as how we can shift from a small company to adopt and to onboard those leaders into the output ecosystems. Agility was one, transparency was another one. So when you acquire a company, and to be honest, people are scared. They're afraid. They know who you are. So there is a lot of diplomacy to learn, and as well as we have chief people officer now, which takes the job and the bridge. And I mean, from my perspective, it's more about what are the ecosystems we want to onboard and in a secure and safe manner.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a juggling, the CIO job, because you have to keep employees happy. You have to ensure all of the business systems are operating at a capacity of providing the security and necessary feature functionality for running the business. And you're also enabling the customer-facing applications because you're connecting the business to the customer and you own the bridge between the two. But then when innovation comes in, talk about how are you going to innovate yourself, and one part of the enterprise is slower because business doesn't want to be faster. They're more interested in stability, accuracy, efficiency, and they're more like a cruise ship going at 39 miles. And then the engineering, the product, and another system ecosystem is running at a speedboat capacity, like, hey, I need to go faster, I need to do things. And then security comes in the middle, and then startups come also in the middle because they don't know where to go, where the plug is going to be. And so how are you navigating? Some of the obviously the fellows in the medical and AI and devices side. What's the transition period for an IT and a startup to come in, and then how do you manage that today, and what are your guidelines to any founder to navigate that?
Yeah, I think you can describe our jobs. That's what the life. You heard me say this before, CIO and CFO, key flexibility officer, right? You've got to have multiple seats. You can't just operate the same way. Depending on which domain it is, it's important for a startup to recognize what is the impact that they can have.
And does that in fact move the needle for the customer in the near term? If you figure that out, then you partner with us, we can put you in the right spots, and the impact is immediate. Like I was saying, you don't fix something that is so convoluted and never see the light of day. So I think it's important to be smart and really try to understand where the pain point is and where the impact can be immediate, and we can help you partner with that. And I've always said this, if you're running AI, you use your natural intelligence first before you use artificial.
That's a great advice. So, coming back to you, Raj, obviously we're moving to agentic and we're deploying agents everywhere, and there's a fear of these agents going to take away my job, versus how is this going to enable the enterprise to be productive. Obviously, you have deployed solutions that are actually now thousands of agents. Just give me a glimpse of what is happening in the world that you're going to see in 25, and how do you see this transforming the next 2-3 years?
I think any of this first thing, seeing stuff is not reversing. Now this is one technology, you don't need as much educating need to be. People are seeing that, right? So the operations of the business is asking for a much faster speed.
I want this.
Right? So I think that's the fundamental change compared to the previous technology shifts, which makes it harder, especially after the gardens and the customers. I think that's one. Having said that, I think that the pull factor is helping to improve the fluency of the organization and democratize the economy. Right? While we are taking our time to put the right guardrails for the more complex stuff, we also use some platforms and toolkits to democratize so that people can do their things better themselves.
I agree.
I think that part is helping them meet the immediate things like lightweight agents and improve the fluency of operation and the cultural aspects of really using AI while we're doing the hard stuff of creating the company so that we can build more complex cycles. I think that's where right now in our organization, what we did actually was we trained the team and dedicated like 800 agents and others, and it keeps growing every week. And I go to that.
No, but I was sharing and they just launched some of the agents and I can't figure out what they're doing. Yeah. So I think one of the most important things is when you're actually deploying AI, right? I mean, there's the adoption versus the usage versus the actual efficiency. And one of the important things is that you can't just unleash it, because then it comes back and bite you. And then it's one of the other things there. You're launching these agents, are they actually useful? If they're not, are they going to cost us more? Because we're also cost police. Because we're cost center as an IT, right? And those are things that are really important. So coming back to you, Prasad, obviously startups are now looking for, the next wave in enterprises, and one of the challenges is context. Obviously in AI, what is important is I can give you, how to drive, but if the car doesn't have a navigation system for you to use, then you're all of a sudden trying to figure out how to really go. It's like AI is given to you, but AI is not useful because it doesn't have the navigation system or understanding of where to go and what to do. And so that's the situation we're in. And what's your guidance to founders who are trying to build the next AI systems and how to navigate that context deficiency?
That's a great question. If you look at one of the most important factor in a tool purchase decision, is the aspect of what calls trust.
Yeah.
Because you have now taken the responsibility of something that you were working on, and now you're getting a third party vendor, and entrusting your business process, and entrusting your data, and entrusting your business system to that particular vendor. So my advice to startup founders is figure out how you are going to now get that trust factor. Because trust is the hardest thing to achieve, and it's the easiest thing to make. Right? All you need to do is one mistake, and all the trust that you have built up over the years is gone. Right? It's very similar to a marriage. You spend years with them, then there's one act of different and you're gone. Right? It's something similar to that. Right? So I would say focus on how do you earn that trust with that stakeholder that you're working with, whether it's a business or IT, because now the line between business and IT, what I was saying, is very, it's very thin. Right? Because business is also becoming savvy with technology, thanks to all the available material on ChatGPT and other things, right? Because business leaders are talking because of technology, and that's fascinating.
Right. So coming on to the rapid aspects, right? So coming into low-level decisions when you're making some IT, we have procurement as well. One of the current problems, the speed is important, but then you have procurement as well. You have security involved. See, the purchasing used to be much easier and faster in the a decade ago, when there is not a whole lot of concerns. So one thing that I'm observing, and people feel this as well, why is it taking longer when technology is so advanced? It's not because technology is advanced doesn't mean problems are solved. Technology is introducing problems also. And the thing is, mostly they're introducing concerns, they're introducing risks. And I think what's mostly really held back is really navigating the hard part of how do I move fast, but then also not compromising security, compliance, and regulatory aspects. And being a large global company, you're dealing with not just one or two, you're dealing with global compliances. And also not only the vertical aspects, but also the industry aspects and whatnot. Just in a minute, what's the way you see that changing or working for you?
One key word, automation. Automation, but the human aspect needs to be also put it in the center, right? So I guess not every functional person understands IT technical perspective, right? Not everyone in the business understands IT level, so bring everyone to the table. The center, provide the business use case, provide the outputs. In the middle, you have the problem. IT, we completely understand all those kind of discussions, but we provide the value of those kind of solution. So, automation, trust, like you said, definitely, and business value to implement those kind of solution for the businesses.
Gentlemen, I think this is amazing. It is rapid. I gave each two questions, but so valuable even for me to just kind of bring. First of all, give them a round of applause because I have not told them what to ask. They don't have anything to start on the stage basically. The other thing is they all travel from all over the places to come and be with you and spending their time. I really appreciate it. As an organizer, taking my consideration and request to come and join this summit and helping us be successful there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that was an amazing panel with Mr. Alan Gaggett as moderator. We will now move on to the next segment, which is getting to witness one of the most exciting parts of the summit, the Junicorn startup pitches. And we are about to see 8 to 10 early stage founders pitch their ventures. These are the Junicorns, the startups with extraordinary potential, led by founders with the vision, the grit, and the execution. the ability to build something meaningful. For investors in the room, this is the deal flow. For corporate executives, this will be your future innovation partners. For fellow founders, this is inspiration and competition that raises fluency. This is how the future together, and get all the speakers led to the speakers lounge for the roundtable discussions. Very good morning, afternoon, everyone. So before I begin today's speeches, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the energy that this room has gathered since the inaugural last night. We have some extraordinary builders who have weathered early storms, also scaling to greatness, some have also seen the sunshine post these storms, and those are just beginning to spark the next wave of disruption. I think we can all agree that the shift from AI as an accessory to AI as an autonomous operator cannot be ignored. So riding this pivotal wave, we have promising unicorns that exemplify this paradigm. And without any further ado, I would like to introduce our first unicorn of the day, powered by AI. They can be introduced as the brain for Codebase, and we have Dhiren, the co-founder, on the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is lovely to be here today in this room full of experts and leaders, and I'm so excited to present what we've been building today at Pot5 AI. System to build enterprise systems and purposeful agents. So enterprises today are really excited about AI. They want to adopt AI, but the reality is that tools of today don't scale. There are code bases that start from 1 million lines of code all the way up to 100 million lines of code. Even I was surprised when I posted 100 million. So if you want to know which company that was, please find me after. And the problem is that code-based context is not the only thing that causes enterprise-grade white coding to fail. The problem is that context is fragmented across multiple tools. You have your logs, you have PRDs, you have product management software, everything is distributed everywhere. And tools today rely a lot on prompts and wipes, but wipes don't scale. Developers need systems and not wipes. The truth is that it is not a scale issue. It is very much a systems issue. There is a lack of unified context. When the context is spread across Jira, Linear, and other systems, the knowledge needs to be unified. At Pot5, this is the exact problem that I was set out to solve. We have, sorry, at Pot5, this is the exact problem that I was set out to solve. We are building systems with deep understanding of agents, actual large code-based understanding, which creates deep systems of knowledge graphs that unify not just your context or your code base, but also from your tools and logs, etc. These agents use an overflow system. These agents reason over food systems and not just the code base, and give proportionate output. I'm going to show you a quick demo walking you through how we achieve this through our guardrails and workflow that allows us to give this kind of output.
Research planning build a foundation pipeline for this service and you begin using the pipeline. Discuss analyzing and examining feedback the workflows and you can monitor about this is the graph that takes the structure into the tools as well as influence about our application. Once it is ready, it will come up with this set of clarifying questions that we set apart a whiteboard solution from a enterprise solution. Here, if you notice, some options have been selected by AI. This comes from the context that we are already provided, which will be actions or tools. If you scroll down, you will also see questions that require human input. Here, for example, it is asking what should happen in a flat for analytical, but we will deal with analytical. Now, this is a business context. At Potter, we want to use that business and get context into handle that and to build a pretty reliable feature you need to open in your